2005. We started as one cottage near Burford, sleeps 8, and then had a second cottage join us in 2010. I studied environmental biology at university, so when I got the cottages and wanted them to be, to rent them out, I was already aware that I wanted to be eco. I was already aware about climate change. And I thought, I want to do something in that space, but I want to have, a very high-end luxury place. I don't want it to be dark. I don't want it to be cold. I want people to come there because they want to come there, but then we're eco too. So for many years, we sort of ran it in the background. We did call ourselves Eco Chic Cottages deliberately because we wanted people to be aware. But in the early days, when I used to get people to book and say, why did you book? Was being eco important to you? Most people in the old days would have said, no, but it's nice to have. That's completely changed now. People definitely book us because we're eco, and I think they actually expect it now. So I feel after all those years, we've sort of come of age. So we've been doing it a long time. We don't have any major infrastructure like solar or heat pumps, but what we do is we operate the small steps approach. So we do what we can when we can. We know we're absolutely not perfect. I still have to buy the odd plastic item or the odd silicone spoon and things like that, because where I come from, I want our guests to be 100% happy. I want them to think of the place not as eco, but then realizing, wow, it is eco, and I could do some of these things too. So we look at every single decision we make in our business is, how could we do this in a more sustainable way? Could we buy better? Could we do things better? So, for example, we are now on our third set of LED bulbs, because in 2005, when I first installed them, it sounded a wonderful idea, but they were the days when you would go in, turn the light on, and you'd have to wait 5 minutes for it all to warm up and be light and bright. And of course, we don't have that now. You turn on a light and it's just like any other. So things have moved on. We were very well aware that we wanted to have good water usage, as little water usage as possible. So in those days, we put a brick in the toilet system. Again, those sorts of things have gone, unless you've got old toilets, you still have to do that. But with any piece of equipment that we buy, we make sure it's the most energy efficient and the most water efficient. For many years, we never had a tumble dryer, but we always had a rack where you could dry your clothes outside. These all seem really small things, but they're all small things that are very easy to do, and they add up to a big whole. Now, we still keep the racks. We do have tumble dryer these days because tumble dryers have got a little bit more eco. And we also used to do, well, still do, but in the early days, people didn't really understand why we maybe had so many lights. Some people who stayed with us who deemed themselves very green would sometimes criticize us for having too many lights, for example, and I'd have to go back and say, yes, but all our lights are LED. We've also always paid a smaller amount extra for our electricity. We've always bought green electricity from OVO. So there's lots of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. In our building itself, or both buildings are old. The Chestnuts dates from the 1800s. Cole's Cottage is from the 1670 and is a listed building. So, we've got our challenges there on what we can do. We have some double glazing in the Chestnuts. We have no double glazing at all in the listed property at the moment. Now, listed buildings regulations have changed, and it is possible now for us to have some once we put in for planning permission, but that's something in the future that we're definitely going to try and do. But at the moment, the Cole's Cottage windows are quite cold. So we do things like invest in blinds, or you could have we thermally lined curtains. We try to stop all drafts that we can with the draft excluder. Again, all tiny little things, but very, very achievable. We have had a couple of new extensions. With those, we've tried to do them as best we can for energy saving. So we've always put in more insulation than we needed to for building regulations. We've also tried to use some innovative products. So we've had an extension at Coles Cottage and the Chestnuts that's had recycled glass as part of the foundations. We've also put in bird boxes and bat boxes into the actual fabric walls of the building. So every time we try to do something, we try and think about how we could do it better. For the guests, okay, the guest who books might know that we're eco because they've booked us and they know the name. But when you've got 8 people coming, it's quite likely that 7 people just know that they're going to a nice place in the Cotswolds. So we always make sure that we've got some hints around the cottage that we're eco. So we have a sheet that greets them that has lots of things about how the house and how to use it, but it's also got that we are eco and a little bit about what we do. And then around the cottage, for example, we are no smoking throughout both of our cottages, but we're a no smoking house and garden. And on those signs, we have a nice picture of a hedgehog because we've been trying to get better wildlife in our garden, and we now have a hedgehog. And so we put the hedgehog there and tell people that cigarette butts are actually dangerous to wildlife. We try never to preach, we try always to inform and give people reasons why we do things. We've not only do we do things inside, but we do things in our garden as well. So our garden is deemed still part of our whole eco ethos. So we try to plant with plants that don't need that much watering. We do have water butts, so we collect our own water. Even off the garden sheds, we collect our water. We plant plants that are good for bees, you know, all the usual things, the lavenders, the lavaterias, all those things that bees and butterflies like. We try to keep nettles in one area. And we've also put a section across where it's very small at Coles Cottage, where we've just left it to grow as what we call our mini meadow. And then at the Chestnuts, we've got a much larger plot where we really have got a good meadow. But there, we also still have a sign that say that 97% of meadows in the UK have gone now, and we're trying to get some back. So again, we're always trying to tell people, and we try to make the signs really nice. So the one with the that tells you about the meadow has got a lovely picture of a meadow in bloom as well. So it's never, you know, don't do this. It's always trying to help people. Inside, we also have all of our toiletries, all the cleaning products that we leave and that we use behind the scenes are all eco. Many of them are Ecova brand. We leave toiletries like shampoos, conditioners, they are also all eco. So again, we're leaving another little sort of hint to people that we're doing the right thing. And then finally, I mean, there's many more things that I can go into that we do. And if anybody wants a list of them, I'm very happy to share the list of the things that we do. But we also leave them a little gift to take away, which is a dishcloth, but it's a printed dishcloth with sheep on it, very Cotswolds. It's made out of cellulose, and it's a dishcloth that they can take home, think about their holiday when they're washing up maybe. But this dishcloth we have a little note on it and say that it's eco. You can wash it, reuse it many, many, many times. And then when you want to get rid of it, you can either recycle it or you can line your pots with it for the garden. It's just a little takeaway thing. It costs us just about £1. But it's another thing that says, you know, we've enjoyed having you stay. You've stayed in an eco house. And hopefully they've learned something. I don't know if you want any more or if
That's brilliant. Thank you. No, that's great. What I'll do is I'll ask each champion to give an overview and then we can drop in with some questions and things afterwards. Lisa, can I ask you to go next?
Yes, hello. Well, thanks, Chris, for sharing your sustainability journey so far. That's really cool to hear how it's going from the accommodation side of things. So we're obviously a guided tour company. We drive great big diesel chugging minibuses. So not the most environmentally friendly. Although the minibuses that we have are the most environmentally friendly diesel chugging minibuses that we have available. We would absolutely love to be the first company to have electric minibuses. Unfortunately, they are prohibitively expensive, and the infrastructure for what we need them to do just isn't there at the moment, but maybe one day. So we, on our sustainability journey, I'd say we're kind of on the journey. We're not perfect at all by any stretch of the imagination. But we are, as I think Chris said, doing what we can with what we've got. Little things, little changes to try and make things better. We really believe that it's the right thing to do. It's not, I mean, obviously you can get lots of good PR and social media content out of your sustainability practices, but it's not about that. It's about doing what's right, what we feel is the right thing to do. So our focus with sustainability is on responsible tourism, sort of being sustainable in terms of ensuring that the Cotswolds stays beautiful, because all these visitors are coming to visit the Cotswolds because it's beautiful, and it's at risk, and certainly in some places, of becoming over touristed, and tourism can have a detrimental effect on the area. And so we don't want to be part of that problem. We want to be part of the solution. Sometimes as a tour operator, we do get tarred with the brush of, you know, the coaches coming in, bringing swarms of visitors to places like Bourton on the Water and Byberry that are getting overrun. We do go to Bourton on the Water and Byberry. We wouldn't sell any tickets if we didn't, to be perfectly honest. But what we have done is launched a few new tours which go to some of the quieter, smaller places to try and spread the visitors around. And we're really trying to put messages that, you know, the Cotswolds is not just Bourton on the Water and Byberry. There are other beautiful places to visit, and we are really passionate about those places and wanting to show people the real Cotswolds, not just the touristy Cotswolds. Where was I going with that? I've completely lost my thread. One of the big things that we do, Lindsay mentioned, we're members of Good Journey. The Good Journey is a non-profit organisation which promotes car-free travel. Although we do drive the big diesel chugging minibuses, we do take up to 16 cars off the road. We have 16 passenger seat vehicles. We can take that many cars off the road potentially. So it is a smaller vehicles can go around the narrow roads. We're not just clogging up the main arteries like with all the other traffic. We can take the scenic routes. We can go a bit off the beaten track. It's a nicer experience for our customers, and it's a little bit kinder to everyone else that gets stuck in the congestion as well. Good Journey promotes car-free travel, as I said. We've been members since 2020, which I think is when it actually first started. So we're founder members of Good Journey. We offer various organisations that are members of Good Journey offer a discount or some sort of offer for people who show that they have arrived at that destination, at the attraction, without using a car. So Blenheim Palace, I think, gives a discount if you show your train ticket or your bus ticket to show that that's how you've arrived at Blenheim Palace. We offer a coffee in one of our favourite local coffee shops. And that's a nice thing to do. It supports a local business, and it's also encouraging people to travel car-free. One of the big take-homes that we have got from Good Journey is to promote public transport wherever possible, over and above car use. So on our website, we have a whole load of information about how people can arrive at the pickup points for our tours. And we will always put the public transport information first. We have chosen our pickup points specifically because they are easily accessible by public transport. So we pick up from 2 central locations, one in Stratford-upon-Avon, which is where we live, and that's at a coach terminal, which is right in the middle of town. It's easy walking distance from all the local hotels and also from Stratford station as well. And then the second pickup point is at Moreton-in-Marsh train station, which is not only handy for the train for visitors coming up from London or Oxford, but it's also a bus stop where some of the local buses drop off as well. So we will always promote people, or always, you know, encourage people to come by public transport over and above their own car, or to even taking a taxi. What else have I got to say? So we support, as well as Good Journey, we support the Caring for the Cotswolds scheme. This is a scheme that's run by the Cotswolds National Landscape. And so we have a visitor giving scheme. So every time someone books a ticket for one of our tours, they have the option straight on the website of adding £1 or £2 or £3, however much they want to add as an optional donation to the Caring for the Cotswolds scheme. We then match fund all of our customers' donations, and we send the money to the Cotswolds National Landscape. And that money gets pooled into a fund which community groups, local organisations can apply for funding for heritage, conservation, education and accessibility projects. So examples of things that have happened in the past are projects that have been funded, the Walled End Orchard in Chipping Camden, which was at risk of being turned into a car park. That has been saved and is sort of managed through funding from the Caring for the Cotswolds scheme. Other things have been setting up friendship walking groups. I think there was a friendship walking group in Gloucester that was set up through that scheme with funding from that scheme. Sowing wildflower meadows and all sorts of things, providing accessible stiles and gates, not stiles, replacing stiles with gates to make walking paths accessible for people with disabilities or pushchairs, all sorts of different things. So we like to contribute to that scheme. I'd encourage other businesses in the Cotswolds to contribute to that scheme as well. I think as sort of ambassadors for the Cotswolds, we need to make sure that it stays beautiful for everybody, and it stays, you know, it continues to be a reason for people to visit, but to visit and also put something back into local communities as well. Talking of local communities, we recruit locally as well. We're based in Stratford-on-Avon and obviously work in the Cotswolds. So all of our team, all of our guides, all of our admin staff were all recruited from the local area. So that is important, I think, as well, because it shows that we've got a real passion for our community and people in this local area. We're not outsiders that are bringing hordes and hordes of tourists up from London just purely for profit. We love the Cotswolds. This is our home. It's our area. We want to share it with people, and it's important for us that we have local people that have that passion and real connection with the Cotswolds as well. I think that's about it that I can think of at the moment. But yeah, I'm sure I'll think of other things I've missed. But yeah.
That's great. Thank you. That's given some great insight on the Good Journey and Caring for Cotswolds as well, which is a brilliant scheme. Last speaker, Jenny from Westonbirt.
Hey, yeah, thanks Lisa and Chris. Interesting, different perspectives. So bear with me, I will be reading from some text. As I said, various people have contributed to what we're doing on site. Some of it I'm more involved with than others. So here we go. So we've sort of split what we're talking about today here into core areas: waste, water, energy, procurement and engagement. But actually what I was going to do before I start that, just to put it into context, I don't know if you know that Westonbirt is a district of Forestry England, and Forestry England is is Forestry Commission rebranded. We are a district on our own, and we're separate, you know, totally different from all of the other sites and districts, as they are what you might imagine a traditional Forestry England site would be, is a woodland originally created for growing timber, felling timber, selling timber, etc. A lot of the other sites are now developed into slightly more visitor centre-y. So you can imagine the Forest of Dean is reasonably well known as a visitor centre, but it is actually a working forest. Whereas Westonbirt is historically a very rich man's back garden and botanical tree collection. So we are different from all the other sites. We have pay to enter. All the other sites are pay to car park. And therefore the visitor services that we offer here are quite significantly more, can't think of the right word, sorry, sort of ramped up than a lot of the other forestry sites you might go to that might literally just be a car park in the woods. Forestry England over the years is moving towards a lot more of a sustainable approach itself, but Westonbirt has our own sort of take on that, and are doing our own thing. And something that is very important to me is that that the visitors understand who we are, the organisation that we are part of, and that we are actually involved in conservation work on a global scale, not necessarily just a place to take your dog for a walk or bring the children to play. So it's trying to get that strike that right balance, that people understand we are here in a conservational for a conservational purpose, but also we're providing them with a great day out. So that's just kind of trying to put Westonbirt into context for you guys. So just going back to our core areas that we're focusing on. So I'm looking at energy to start with. We carried out an audit and baseline to look at the options to reduce consumption and look at renewable generation. So far, we have confirmed that Forestry England and the Friends of Westonbirt Arboretum use a renewable energy tariff. The Friends of Westonbirt Arboretum are the charity that work with us, and if you were to become a member of the Friends of Westonbirt, that would mean that you had your little membership card and didn't need to pay when you came. So people think of it as a season ticket, but actually the money that goes to the charity comes back to Westonbirt to support us in projects, etc. We've installed more LED lights in our offices, changed timers and temperatures for our boilers, and have just installed our first solar panels, which has been quite a challenge. All of our buildings are timber buildings, so it's quite a lot of depth going into the structure, and the state of the timber buildings, obviously before we're going to be putting solar panels on. So we have now made progress with that, which is fantastic. Regarding procurement, we use various guidelines, including that we have to use FSC and PEFC products, including paper. We don't purchase products with palm oil in if we're catering for meetings or volunteer meetings, etc. Or we will accept RSPO palm, which can be a bit of a challenge if you're buying snacks for your volunteers. We use 100% recycled paper. We use our own timber in building projects, which is the visitors love to hear about where this particular enormous beam came from and what part of the Arboretum it came from. We use reuse our materials in our learning and craft activities, and we also use natural materials from around the Arboretum, creating some fantastic activities for children. Using eco-cleaning products in our staff kitchens. For larger contracts, including our larger events, so for example, the concerts that we have online and the Christmas event that we have asked suppliers about their sustainability practices, and it is part of our tendering process now that the people with the best sustainability practices will score higher in the tender process. So regarding waste, we have our strategy now to reduce general waste and increase recycling. The target was set by the government at 70%, which we are just about beating that. We use milk glass bottles in our offices. We provide water refill points in various locations for the visitors. Hand dryers instead of paper towels. Our restaurant is provided by partner business and who attempt to use local food suppliers and do use local food suppliers wherever possible. They've introduced more recyclable or reusable packaging, including pizza tins, encouraging visitors to bring their reusable cups when using one of our coffee outlets. They get discount on their coffee. We've removed condiment sachets where possible, so using the larger dispensers. Moving on to travel, we are currently working with Gloucestershire Community Rail Partnership, National Trust Gloucestershire and Slimbridge to work together to promote improving public transport provision in Gloucestershire to nature attractions, which has resulted in adding the Robin bus to as a facility for the public to use. I don't know if anybody doesn't know about the Robin bus. I can sort of tell you a bit more about that in a minute, if you like. We're also currently working with the University of Gloucestershire students to carry out travel surveys and analysis of our visitors, staff and our volunteers, of who we have over 300 volunteers. So it's quite a significant input coming from them. Engagement. So our vision is to be a world leader in trees, and our mission is to connect people with trees. So providing great experience, but engaging with our visitors in the importance of the trees and their benefits, which sort of alludes to the national and international work that some of our tree team are involved in. So we have over 550,000 visits per year. So we have the potential to outreach to a lot of people, and there's always the possibility of it improving the messaging of what we're trying to achieve, including the threats to many of the trees faced in the UK and globally, and which ones we're focusing on and how we're trying to protect them. We are also connected to other businesses, including the heads of sustainability network meetings for the Association of Large Visitor Attractions, sharing our experience and ideas. That's not something I've personally been involved with so far. To sort of bring it down into a little bit more sort of personal detail, in one section of our arboretum, we have a large area of where we had ash trees, which had cholera, which is ash dieback. All of those trees were taken out, which left over the last few years, which left quite a large, ugly looking part of the arboretum. And we've turned that into a positive area for engagement, which is now our community woodland. So we're bringing in groups of visitors who potentially wouldn't visit the arboretum otherwise, working with them in a very inspirational way. I can say that because it's not me doing it, my colleagues doing that, and encouraging or sharing with them, encouraging their understanding on how important the woodland is. We're trialing different methods of protection methods to stop the deer from eating the new trees. We're trying different things to see which, so rather than just traditional plastic, to see which are sustainable methods, effective, etc. Different methods of matting around those new trees, mulching, again, to see what we can use that's sustainable but actually impactful as well. So we're carrying out some trials with those. But the most rewarding element of that is sharing the experience with groups of people who, as I said, who wouldn't come here otherwise, including refugees, and encouraging that the spreading of the message and how important it is to conserve and use sustainable methods. So that's a lot of information, I think, probably. But yeah, I'm open to any questions or later if when it's appropriate.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you to all the three champions for speaking. I suppose now it's a question of anyone have any questions or thoughts that they want to sort of add or things that you'd like to hear more about, either put it in the chat or just shout out, basically. Keep it quite informal.
Sorry, it's probably not meant for me at all to come in here, but
You
seeing
can
as
add
I'm
things,
not
that's
involved,
fine.
I've got a couple of questions for. First, I just wanted to say to Chris, having seen the cottage in Chiltern quite a few moons ago, I must admit, but
It was.
it really was impressively. It did have that luxury and eco thing, and I thought your messaging was really well done. I think that's, it's really heartening for me to hear, as I'm not involved day to day in any of this, to see that the things that I write in the DMP or in, our strategy in action, and these things actually happening and being embodied in one way or another. And I just wanted to say that with Go Cotswolds, Lisa, I just had a question about your stops. Do because you do 6-8 hour trips, 6 hours?
Yeah, about 7.5 hours. Yeah.
And so where do you choose to stop, and do you encourage people, I'm just kind of thinking on the, whether there's anything worth mentioning in that. Do you choose who you encourage people to go, or to eat locally, and hopefully not at some sort of, well, there aren't any Starbucks luckily or whatever, but
Yeah. So we've got 4 different tour items. So our tours are small group, mostly small group tours. We do a few private tours, but mostly small group tours where people can book individual tickets and join a group of up to 16 people. So our tours have, we've got 4 different routes that we do. The one that is our most popular is our Cotswolds in a day tour, which goes, we've tried to mix it up a bit. It's not just all the highlight villages in one go, but this one does go to Bourton-on-the-Water and Bybury, as well as Chipping Camden, Stow-on-the-Wold, Snows Hill, and Dover's Hill. We take to Dover's Hill. So that's our most popular tour. I guess the problem with Bybury, Bourton-on-the-Water is that they're the places that people have seen on the internet, on Instagram, the very Instagrammable pictures, and that's where everybody wants to go. We don't spend a huge amount of time in Bourton-on-the-Water or Bybury. It's not practical to do so, especially in Bybury at the moment. We're quite lucky in that the coach parking problems in Bourton-on-the-Water don't actually affect us. We're still able and eligible to use the old coach park, which still has a few larger spaces for minibuses and camper vans, so we can still go there. So we're not contributing to the issues that are currently happening in Bourton-on-the-Water with coach parking. And Bybury can be challenging to park, but if it's challenging for us to park, we will drop our customers, drive out of the village and come back and pick them up later, so that we're not adding to that congestion as well. The other routes that we do, so last year we launched a secret Cotswolds tour, which, as the name may suggest, is trying to encourage people to get a bit more off the beaten track. Still goes to a couple of crowd pleasers. We go to Broadway and Burford on those tours, but we're taking people off the beaten track to smaller villages that actually really appreciate visitors coming to those villages, supporting the local shops, supporting the local cafes and things like that. And we've developed really great relationships with a lot of local people in those villages, a lot of local organisations. The man who, the church, I think he's a church warden in Guiting Power, just loves us because we're encouraging people. They've got this fantastic, talking of sustainability, they've got this fantastic composting toilet in the churchyard, which is literally the best public toilet in the Cotswolds. And we've been encouraging our guests to leave a donation. They've got a QR code you can scan to do that. The Rollright Stones as well is another place that we go to. It's a little bit more niche, a little bit more quirky, and we've got an arrangement with the Rollright Stones Trust that we donate to that site for every visitor that we bring there. So yeah, we've got a few different routes, and the other one is we've got a walking tour which does some of the walking trails around the Cotswolds. Again, we contribute to we're members of the Cotswold Way Association, so we're kind of helping to tread lightly on those footpaths as well. And then we've just launched this year, it hasn't started yet, but we're launching this year Bath and Southern Cotswolds tour as well, to try and spread people down into the southern parts of the Cotswolds as well. The north can get very congested and busy, but trying to spread people down to other parts of the Cotswolds as well. So that's where we're going. For each of our tours that we do, we give our customers a little booklet which has got maps. So we're not the kind of guided tour company where you're following the guide with a flag in the air and everyone's kind of following them like lemmings with microphones or walkie-talkies or whatever. We give our guests free time in each of the places, and we give them a little map booklet which points out our favourite coffee shops, things to do, museums, little attractions that people might wish to visit while they're in each of the stops. And we're always, it's quite easy in the Cotswolds, but we'll always champion independent local businesses that we've struck up a good relationship with. We don't offer discounts on any, none of our partners offer, none of the places we recommend offer us discounts, and there's no backhanders involved. They're just genuinely places that we like, places that we want to support because they're a small business like us. So that's where we go.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and it's a big thank you from us, because it is obviously the coach thing is a tricky one for us. I mean, I do get shouted at in Bourton and Bybury by various people, and I'm blamed for it all, despite spending most of my time trying to actually make things better rather than worse. But it's really good to have people who are trying to, because I believe you also try not to go in sort of peak times. Am I right in that on Bourton and Bybury?
Yeah, I mean we're
I know
confined within the sort of the timings of the tour, but yeah, last year, for the first time ever, there was one day where our tour didn't go to Bourton on Water. It's one of the stops on our tour, but we couldn't go there. It was complete gridlock, so we had to go somewhere else instead. That's only happened once. As I say, we can park responsibly, like some others don't. So it's less of an issue for us in that sense. But yeah, we will switch up. The tour itinerary is a little bit fluid, so we do move things around. If it's a sunny bank holiday in August or whatever, we'll tend to go to Bourton on the Water first rather than later in the afternoon when all the other coach companies turn up. So yeah, we do try and minimise our impact as far as we possibly can.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jenny, I just have one question for you about. Sorry, and I'm asking all the questions, and please, somebody else jump in before I say anything else. Do you do anything to incentivize staff? I mean, one of the things that's always struck me is that actually, when we're doing the business practices, we don't talk enough about influencing our staff behaviour sometimes, which I think is really key to some of this. Do you do anything to encourage them to come by active travel? I mean, I don't know. I know it's not easy and they probably live miles away, and they're probably cycling up from Stroud to Westonbirt. It's not going to be the easiest cycle there's ever going to be, but
so we certainly have that conversation on a regular basis. There are a few members of staff who lift share. And there are a few members of staff who cycle in, some volunteers cycle in, and none of them live nearby. I know a member of staff who cycles from Cheltenham to south of Tetbury, and that's quite a long way. But yeah, a lot of our staff live the other side of Bristol, for example, so it's not always possible, but it's definitely a conversation that we have on a regular basis with staff and volunteers. But as a lot of I'm sure you understand, we are not exactly in the middle of nowhere, but there's only one public bus that goes past Westonbirt, and the last pickup is at 4:00 in the afternoon. So we're constantly looking at what more can we do, and how can we get the message out there? How can we improve that? We have, so not exactly answering your question, I mean, that is the answer, but our concerts and Christmas now have the possibility of booking a coach in your local town to come here, rather than everyone coming by individual car. But it's an ongoing challenge. Yeah,
it's probably just worth saying that part of our work as the local visitor economy partnership has been looking at, I mean, traditionally I think bus companies have very much been centered on local residents, understandably, but actually they've never really wanted to talk to us, but now they are a little keener to talk to us. But we have pointed out that actually visitors are really good at helping to support bus services that otherwise might struggle, and actually with some relatively simple changes to timetabling or whatever it might be, they might make it more usable for people to come and visit. I always do the quote of, I think in this day and age it's incredible that Life Park, which gets 400,000 visitors a year or whatever, you can't get there on public transport. I just find that bizarre. So yeah, it's certainly a conversation that I don't know if you have it with Gloucestershire Community Rail Partnership or whatever, and looking at how things could be improved, because I know the Robin is going. I mean, we do have a bit of a problem with the Robin because we've had this conversation when looking at overseas visitors, because the funding is only secure for a year, and obviously when we're dealing with overseas visitors who are keener to use public transport, we're working on a much longer time scale, so we need to know the bus, if we're going to promote it, is still going to be there in 2-3 years time. But yeah, sorry, I'm hogging the conversation. So
yeah, just to say, we do offer a discounted price for people who come by Green Travel. So anyone who can prove that they came on a bus or cycled here, they will get discounted entrance. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often, but yeah, it might. It's a little nudge to help people think about it, possibly.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
I was just going to say at the National Trust. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
At the
no,
National Trust,
go.
we've got a new system whereby if people cycle in, then they actually get free entry. Not to try and trump you there at Westonbirt, but obviously we're slightly larger. But again, it's trying to encourage that sort of behaviour. And then in Worcestershire, there's an on-demand bus service. I'll share the link. So it's a Worcestershire initiative, and I'll just put it into the chat. And essentially, you can call up for your coach or bus to come and pick you up and then drop you off here directly at Croom. So maybe fighting for those sorts of initiatives in your area would be a really positive sort of step forward. I just thought I'd share that aspect.
Yeah,
but obviously,
can I just ask Bertie, is the free entry coming by bicycle, is that just Croom, or is that a National Trust thing generally?
I would have to ask. I think certainly it is at Croom. We're a little bit more remote, and therefore, if people are coming by bicycle, I mean, usually you can tell the people who came by bicycle because they're completely clad in lycra and wear clippy cloppy shoes. But they tend to sort of come here, and then they'll end up just coming into the cafe and then having a cup of tea and then shooting off again. But because obviously if you're cycling a long distance, you're not carrying a lot of stuff with you. You're not carrying a massive bike chain to then go and wander and go around the grounds. But it's a bit of a, we're not entirely sure. Bear me 2 seconds, I'll just ask, is the bike free entry all sites or no? Okay. So they're just going to change that actually and change it to free coffees to try and prove, it's going to be that sort of initiative for getting people in as opposed to the free entry to the whole site. But there's a few sites that do it. I have an oracle who sits opposite me who answers all the questions on demand. Yeah.
That's great. And I don't know if people have seen in the chat, but Jeannie's just put that there's a similar problem with transport to some National Trust properties. And the Chipping Camden Information Centre tried in vain to get a local bus running between Hidcote and Snows Hill. And as a B&B, we always make suggestions for people to walk, take a local bus around the villages, etc. We want to promote the Robin bus, but it's difficult to time it.
Jamie's being very polite and waiting. Don't just jump in.
I was about to. I'll take my hand down now. It was just a quick question about obviously public transport. Yeah, exactly right. Obviously, from a sustainable, active travel point of view. Just a question for the room really? How do people show visitors or their future customers a mechanism to get to their site through public transport? So what mechanism in terms of when somebody's planning to come and see you or planning to undertake obviously one of your tours, Lisa, for example, what sort of mechanism do you give them, show them to be able to plan their route to get you to that site or whatever business you are?
A lot of the advice we give is through email. Customers inquiring with us, they want to take a tour and they don't know how to get from A to B, and we're pretty good now at figuring, we know pretty much all the bus routes and train routes and the timetables and everything, so we can give good advice that way. On every one of our tour pages where people actually book tickets, there's a whole bunch of information, particularly about taking the trains. Morton Marsh is obviously a big train station, not a big train station, it's a small train station, but it's a big point of entry for visitors coming up from London and Oxford to the Cotswolds. So by picking customers up from right outside the station, we can, capture people that are coming by train, and always encouraging the local bus routes as well. I would always encourage, apologies if there aren't any taxi drivers on the call, but taxi fares in the Cotswolds are extremely expensive. The journey from Chipping Campden to Morton in Marsh, for example, the going rate in a taxi is about £35 to £40 for a 15-minute journey, whereas the local bus costs £3. So we would always, even from a cost point of view, I would always recommend the bus. Actually, sometimes the bus can be more reliable than taxi companies as well. So yeah, we could definitely improve on the information that we provide, but we do shout about it as much as we can on our social media, blog posts. We've done a fair bit of work on our SEO. How do I get to Morton in Marsh from London? How do I get to Morton in Marsh from Oxford? Those sorts of keyword strings that people are searching for. So our blog is a very good source of information for people as well.
I have to say, Jamie, though, it is one of the things that we've looked at. I mean, there's a present company, I'm sure, excluded, but there are a couple of things that when we've, done this project that have really struck us is how businesses, I'm talking for Lindsay really, but when she's looking at the businesses and we were looking at potential champions and trying to get a cross section of different types of businesses in size and, how far along their journey they were, etc., we kept coming across, and I would say, I don't know if I'm going to get into trouble, the majority, Lindsay, of businesses, even when they're doing great things, to find out they're doing great things on their website, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. And that to me is part of the problem is, if we're actually serious about this, we need to make sure, and it's sort of a big thing for us, is trying to encourage businesses who are doing anything, something, because there are tiny little things. And I think one of the things for me that's come out of this is actually that whole point is just small steps. Any small step, it's in the right direction, it's got to help. And it doesn't matter whether it's an internal thing with your staff, whether it's a business thing, whether it's, obviously there are big ones. If you're commissioning a new building, I think it's much easier when you're starting from scratch, but actually changing behaviors, our own behaviors is, part and parcel of it, and they're tiny things sometimes, but they do all add up and make a difference. So yeah, would you second that, Lindsay? I mean, you're the one who looked at all the websites in detail, but I do think it's disappointing, and the businesses are doing great things. They should tell people they're doing great things.
Yeah, I think there's for some people there's certainly the element of worrying that if they put their hand up and say, I'm doing something on sustainability, people are going to have high expectations and then start criticizing and saying, well, what are you doing about this and what are you doing about that? So I think it's that honest dialogue, isn't it? Is that sort of put your hand up and say, I am trying to do something. I might not be doing everything. I might not be doing everything the right way or a certain way that you think, but I'm trying, sort of thing. And I think it's just saying that that's fine.
So Not Grove Holidays is based on a 1,500-acre private estate. So we're very lucky in the fact that the owners of the estate are very, very keen champions of nature and sustainability, and they farm the farm in a sustainable way anyway. So they've always had their website on a page on the website about our sustainability. But I'm trying to look now beyond a little bit, actually, where some things we're already doing. So we already do quite a lot. So we've planted 3,500 trees 2 years ago. We do water rain capture. We have our own water system, as in septic tank system, in the whole village. We do all the other things that people have talked about, like eco products in our B&Bs, and we have a whole load of solar thermal and biomass heating systems. and all that sort of on site. And all the activities we champion are electric quad bikes and outdoor activities such as bushcraft and foraging walks and all that sort of thing. So what I'm trying to do is we've also put in electric car chargers. We've done that recently, so that's a new thing. And also because we're a business that has food, the government's just brought in a new food waste requirement. So by the end of March, everybody has to recycle their food. So I don't know if you also knew about those things, but how do you find out about new things? That was a question I wanted to ask, is how do you find about new ideas and opportunities and new government laws about sustainability?
Stumped there.
Yeah.
I mean, we do pass it on when we know, but I have to say we don't necessarily hear any sooner than you do, unfortunately. But I'll come back to you with a proper answer on that, because it's something that I can bring up certainly with the Visit England and the National Tourist Board, because I'm not aware of them. They send out, updates or whatever, but I don't think I can remember seeing a legislation one.
Okay, because I know the food waste thing is one coming in at the end of March.
Yeah, I have seen the food waste one on their general update that they send through. But I mean, they've only really relatively recently started their own sort of sustainability plans and web information. So I think they're on catch up to a certain extent themselves.
Because also the other thing we work with is quite a lot with corporate businesses. So corporate businesses require you to have your sustainable credentials, and we can't get corporate bookings without it pretty much nowadays. So that's another area I was wondering if you could help me with as well, to see because I'd like to know what corporates need in order to tick that box for them when they come to us to book for corporate. Most of it's residential training and brainstorming sessions where they come and book our accommodation, because we can host sort of a group of 30 people, and they're using us a bit to come, and they've sort of got bored with staying in hotels. They want to come somewhere different, so they come and we've done quite a lot with DHL recently, and they come and do sort of yoga session, and then they go outside and do a sort of bushcraft campfire lighting session, and then they'll do their training for 3 days on site. And they like the fact it's not in a hotel, and they like the fact they're all a bit more free to, we're self-catering, so they can do their own food, and then they can drive, and we've got electric car chargers, and they like all that sort of thing. And then we've got permissive paths on the estate, they can go for walks, and we've got foraging. So they've bought into a few of those things as well. But I know that sustainability credentials for corporates is part of their procurement. So I don't know if you've got any advice on how I can tick their box better for them when they look at us.
Well, funnily enough, Lindsay and I were having a discussion about all the 1,001 different things there are at the moment, weren't we, Lindsay? A couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's a pretty complicated field, and I'm loath. I mean, Visit England, we have actually asked this question because it makes sense to, to have some kind of answer that we can give people. But at the moment, they haven't even really made their minds up. I don't think I'm right in saying, Lindsay, have they?
No, I mean, have had a couple of meetings in the last couple of weeks of people that are involved in different schemes. Obviously, you've got your sort of your B Corps, and then there's BSI and people like that. I think in my opinion, if a corporate had it as part of their procurement process, they should actually have multiple listed. They need to have an understanding themselves that there's actually a whole range of different credentials and accreditation out there. And that's, I mean, I even came across one last week that I'd never heard of. So there is just so many. So part of what we're doing in the business hub is we're going to try and pull something together on all of those different options, so that we've got sort of a starting point. So as a business, you can look at it and go, oh, this one looks like it might work for me and my type of business, and I'll look into that one more. I had an interesting conversation with Nick, who runs Cotswold Lakes Brew Company. I think it was either last week or the week before, who's doing some work with Fit for Business, and looking at this gap that there is in accreditation for people that aren't a traditional business, so your not-for-profits, your charities, your trusts, etc., who at the moment don't really have a route to go down on accreditation. So he's working with them to look at a sort of a community sort of accreditation that we're going to sort of help in that conversation and see how it might develop, potentially see if there's a way that we can trial that for businesses in the Cotswolds.
Or aimed at accommodation at the minute for credibility, or for some sort of credibility to say that you do all these different things. There's nothing there at the minute then.
Green tourism.
Green tourism, yeah.
Yeah.
Said in unison. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we are a member of PASC, the Professional Association of Self-Caterers, and they are very, very good on legislation.
Sorry, what was that, Chris?
PASC, PASC, Professional Association of Self-Caterers. It's run by a chap called Alistair Handyside, and their team are brilliant. They have webinars, and also it's a very small amount of money to belong to them each year. I think it's about £150, but you can send them individual questions if you've got any issues, and they'll get back to you with answers. And they have good speakers and webinars every now and again. I'd say they're very, very good value to be with.
I know that. Sorry, is it food related, or is that just self-catering?
No, that is self-catering generally, but like you say, you've just heard of some legislation that affects you with food. If you had a specific question about that, as a self-caterer, I'm sure they would know the answer. So they could help.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Davina?
Obviously, in the Cotswold Lakes, we've got about 50 businesses, and you mentioned Cotswold Lakes Brew that are probably at the top in terms of B Corp and sustainability. All the businesses are doing different things, some far better than others. And you just mentioned their community accreditation, and my thoughts are, how can we bring them all together to get some sort of standards and to get some community accreditation for the area?
I think it would be incredible. It would be incredibly hard to get it for the area. I suspect. I mean, funnily enough, we were looking at getting Good Journey for the Cotswolds, because I think they've done it for Norfolk or Suffolk or whatever. But I mean, we were looking at £40,000, or I can't remember what it was, Lindsay.
It was quite a lot.
Huge sum to do it. I think it's tricky. I mean, to be fair, I mean, Knott Grove is a little bit the same, because you've got all those fantastic, I love the electric quad bikes and Fat Squirrel and all that kind of thing, but they're not directly, they're subcontractors, for want of a better word, working there, but they're part and parcel of it, if you see what I mean, and they are all in their own way green. But it is tricky when you get to these businesses that don't, or areas like Cotswold Lake that don't fit into one neat little sort of silo that they would like to put you in.
Yeah, I mean, as a destination, we have looked. The New Forest run a green leaf scheme, which is a sort of light touch accreditation for their businesses, which has sort of tiers, and it's sort of very much a self-check and honesty scheme, and we've started looking at that as a potential for rolling across the Cotswolds. We've put it on hold because of some new EU legislation which might be coming into play that might affect businesses or organisations running accreditations, and sort of the robustness of how you prove that businesses should have that label. So we're just waiting to see how that affects British businesses, and then we might relook at it to see if we can fill that gap and create something for the Cotswolds that visitors can then sort of get an understanding across all businesses.
So then we could piggyback off that. So the businesses could get an accreditation from you rather than us set up something separate.
Yeah. So I'd say, well, let's have a conversation, but I won't be looking at it in the next month or two because of other things. But
I think, to go back to the corporate thing, you probably need a policy or whatever that is published on your website might well do for most of the corporates, I suspect. I think if you point to something that says what you do or whatever, that might work as a Kate, as a...
I think I'll speak to Lindsay about it afterwards, and she
Yeah.
and I can have a chat about
Yeah.
how to improve our current page to maybe tick some
Yeah.
more boxes.
I mean,
No problem.
part of our aim in all of this and on the website will be to try and just, Lindsay said slightly incorrectly that you'd
Ooh.
appear higher on the website,
Yeah,
but there
it
will
was
be
bad
more
technology.
prominence to businesses that are sustainable, and within individual records we're hoping to give more prominence to sustainability and sustainable businesses. So but that is sort of part and parcel of it, and trying to get people, funnily enough, it's slightly like the accessibility and inclusion thing. The whether they're very much changed from, you used to have very definitely, you know, the gradient is this and this and all sorts of very detailed information, but actually that's slightly gone out the window as the general introduction to it. But people are now, it's much more just stating this is the situation, because everybody's needs are very different. And I think it's sort of slightly, it's not a great analogy, but it's slightly analogous to that, in that I think, you know, people have different things that they care about as visitors and which are important to them. And I have to say, the idea that people would be, I mean, I have to be quite honest, and this is being recorded, so I shouldn't say it, but I mean, if I was a visitor coming to the Cotswolds, I wouldn't come without my car. I don't think, if I was coming for a week. You are so limited in what you can do on public transport and getting around. Our drive is largely centered around minimizing car use once visitors are here. I don't think realistically that we're going to very easily swing that away from, you know, the vast majority who come by with private cars. But if we can get them to leave them behind as much as possible when they're here, then I think we will have, you know, made one of those small steps. I get into a bit of trouble when I say these kind of things, because, you know, the powers that be and the councils would like me to say I'm going to get huge numbers of people coming by public transport, but realistically, I mean, that's not going to happen, certainly in the short term. Jenny.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in response to Jamie's question about how do you let people know, you know, the options of how to get to you, looking at our website from an objective point of view, it's how to get to us, and then all of the car options are first, so coming from the M4, coming from the M5, and the green options are at the bottom. So I suppose it'd be interesting if I can persuade other people to put those at the top, even though they're going to be used by absolute minority. It's just giving that stronger message and raising the profile of actually you can get here another way. So that was a good question.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we're looking to try and achieve, is getting actually that to be raised as the default way of coming, or at least if there is an easy option to do it. I mean, I don't think the numbers are going to be, you know, when I've been discussing coach parking in Bourton and Bybury, for instance, I mean, you know, realistically, people are saying you want to encourage people to come by public transport. And well, we're going, well, we do, but actually, you know, are we going to get the numbers? Are we going to be able to do it? And the answer to that is probably no, not in the huge numbers that are coming. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah, it's really weird because you say that, but we've found that for whatever reason, we don't know why, we've had quite a few Indian families come and book with us, and they have come to us in the middle of the Cotswolds when we're about 3 or 4 miles outside of Bourton on the Water via public transport, and they have come on the bus and then have walked from the bus stop to Knockgrove. And then when they've been here, they haven't gone anywhere at all. I mean, they're lucky enough that they don't really need to. And we've had quite a lot of Indian families for recently. So I think it's a cultural thing, you know, as much as anything. That's what we think it is, because the Indians are just used to using public transport more than, I don't know, most.
I have to say, just having had a week in Yorkshire, I couldn't believe they double-decker buses. And I mean, we were not anywhere large. We were outside in the Robin Hood's Bay, double-decker buses for all the buses, a half-hourly service, and they were rammed. It was standing room only on the buses. And I was thinking, God almighty, how come in an area like this and it's, are there, you know, and it's slightly chicken and egg that you need to get people using them, and it should be part of the experience. I mean, if most people are like my other half, they always want to try and run up and get the front seat at the top. But, you know, it's kind of, when you're a visitor, it is quite nice to not be driving and to be a passenger and to be able to see, etc. And I think that's probably part of our thing, is trying to make it trying to make it enjoyable that people use. Because at the moment, I mean, I think certainly here it's very much seen as a only if I have to kind of thing on public transport.
We work with Peak as well, who do bike hire, and we know that people hire bikes when they come and then use the bikes to get around when they're here.
And that's exactly the kind of thing that we are desperately trying to encourage, is actually, you know, when people come, because we went, for instance, to Yorkshire by car, but we used the car once whilst we were there, because that's exactly what we want to do, try to make bike hire from accommodation easy, promote the companies that do that, pickups by people who are taking tours around. Because I don't think, Lisa, you don't pick up from accommodation, do you, from hotels, or do you?
No, we actually used to. In when we first started, we didn't have a pickup point at Morton in Marsh at all. We're based in Stratford, so we used to go around and pick up from all the different hotels. But Stratford's a very busy, congested place, and we soon realised that was fairly unsustainable. It just added a lot of extra driving and waiting time. So we moved to doing the two sort of central pickup points, and it's been phenomenal actually. I would say we're lucky in that the tours that we do are generally taken by people that don't have their own cars or don't want to drive anyway. But I would say 70-80% of our tour guests don't come by car, they walk or take public transport. So
and what percentage roughly are overseas visitors?
80%. I would say, yeah. So there's that as well. People that don't want to drive on the wrong side of the road and all that kind of stuff. We're in a unique position in that sense.
Yeah.
Chris, yeah, it probably isn't one for now, Chris, but you should have my email address through this in some way. But drop me a message, because we work with parts of Yorkshire in terms of a public transport real-time travel data about getting to places to and from. So that's bus, train and ferries for more coastal areas and international travel. So it might be, drop me a message, because I think you might be able to help in a bit of that for the region. But yeah, if you drop me a message, I'm happy to have a chat with you.
Yeah, I'm very happy to. Well, it'll probably be Lindsay, but yeah.
Lindsay.
Sorry, Lindsay.
Don't say sorry.
I'm always apologising to her as I pass more work onto her off my sleepy shoulders. What did intrigue me there, and again, I'm sorry, but I don't really use the buses in the Cotswolds. I mean, I just tend to be going from one meeting to another or whatever it might be. But there were so many request stops, which I thought was brilliant on the bus routes. I mean, we were at the top of a very steep hill outside Filingthorpe, and I was thinking, Christ, the bus stop was at the bottom of the hill, and it was steep and it was long. It was about a mile. And I thought, Christ, we've got to walk up that after we've been out all day. And then bloke on the bus said, oh, no, I'll drop you at the top. It's a request stop. So, yeah, it was fantastic. Almost to the door.
We've probably got just if Kate, if you say what you wanted to, and then we probably need to wrap up, because we're fast approaching.
Kate's hand is still up from before.
Oh, is it from before? Okay, fab. That's all right. I'm sure we could keep talking and talking, but hopefully it's been a useful hour and a half for everyone. And yeah, do drop me a line on anything that you want to pick up, or you want more information, or if you want to be put in contact with a specific person, just let me know. We have got more forums coming up, so if you're not signed up to those, then please do so. We've got one for accommodation providers, one for sort of attractions and activities, and then the final one in this set on nature related activities, and we'll be then hopefully doing some more in the coming months as well. Sally's also asked me to plug her last Help to Thrive event, which is coming up, which is how to attract visitors by foot and bike. So if that's something that you're interested in, then that's a half morning in person workshop. I will email you all of this information so that you've got links to click on, etc. And then just a heads up that the CNL with the LVEP group, we've also got some guides coming out, which are just on their final tweaks, one on energy and waste work and one on nature related activities. So I'll also either send those through as attachments or as links as well. So there might be some useful information there for you as well.
Probably also worth mentioning, it's probably only you, Chris, any businesses based in West Oxfordshire, we may well have some one-to-one with Good Journey business support. So if you want to put your at the moment, because of the funding, that will only be businesses in West Oxfordshire. We might possibly have some funding from Cotswold District Council, so businesses in Cotswold District might also be able, but at the moment I don't know. But just to say, keep your eye out for that, because it will be a limited number of businesses and it will probably be first come, first serve, I suspect.
Oh, I don't know. It might be more of if there's oversubscription, we'll pull names out of a hat kind of thing. I don't like the whole first person to respond.
Okay.
So yeah.
Most needy.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've made notes where people have asked for feedback and to have chats. I've made some notes, so I will come back to you as soon as I can, hopefully this week, if not the following week. So
thank you very much.
Okay,
cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.